So to make it easy for all of us, I'm going to have you start and we'll just share that microphone and I'm going to have you tell us who you are, how long you've been in real estate, the company you're with, and on a number from 1 to 10, how do you feel like your life work balance is? Like, just give us a number. We'll go back to that, but just like, and let's see how it goes. 10's good. 1 is not so good. Go ahead, Lori.
Hi, I'm Lori Robitaille-Biasca. I am with Christie's International Sereno, and this is my 11th year in the business. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say it's a strong 7. I would almost push 8,
Nice.
but it wasn't always.
Pass the mic. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Roxy Loffer. I'm also from Christie's International Real Estate Sereno in the Los Gatos office. I've been in real estate, it will be 9 years on June 15th. And I would say that when I started, my balance was a 3, and I'm 6.5 on my way to a 7 right now.
Cool.
Hi, everybody. My name is Helen Chong, and I've been in the business for 20 years in August. Oh my God. And I have my own firms called Hayland Real Estate. We do both residential and commercial real estate. And in terms of work-life balance, I think it depends on how old my kids are and how much activities they have. For now, because I cannot walk, I have a very good work-life balance. I was rated a 10 because my husband does everything right now.
I love it. I love it. Oh, okay. So something, and what, Helen, you can start. We'll just go back and forth. So something that is, and I'm going to ask you guys to like lay off the coffee pot if you don't mind. Do you have an accountability, a coaching, a mentor? Do you have something that helps you get to that life balance other than injury?
So my give a little bit of perspective. I have 3 kids, and I started this business when they were really young, literally when I was pregnant with my kids. And in the beginning, it was really hard. I really did not know how to handle it, being like, okay, I want to work, but I also have to take care of these babies. And so I have spoken with a mentor who is a lady, and then she was just like, you gotta hire a nanny. And I'm just like, I'm not making that much money. I don't want to hire a nanny. It was like, or you can just do what nanny does, get paid like what at the time back then. I feel so old now. It's like $10 an hour. So I was like, oh, that's true. Okay, fine. I'll just do 5 hours a week. And but then I realized that I can actually do so much more work. So that was like my first like mentor that I really remember until now. She told me like, you gotta hire a nanny. You work from home. You can still see your kids. It doesn't mean that you're neglecting your children. I was like, okay. So over the years, still really difficult. I did hire a few coaches, but I just felt like some of the coaches don't really understand a woman, a mom, and try to work at the same time. I have given advice like, hey, you know what, just like, why don't you just take it easy? If you really want to be a mom, then focus on that. Or it's like, no, you need to do all of these homework. I was like, ah. So I eventually kind of like not doing the coaching anymore. But I learned to build a team. I learned to split all my work with my team members. So I rarely do any deals on my own. I always have a team member to do the deals together. That's how I keep myself
And do you do residential and commercial?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, Roxy.
I've always had different coaches since I started the business. Actually, it was one of the first things that I did, but I also built out a team. So my team is 5 people. Not everyone works full time, but that has been the best thing to figure out what is the highest and best use of my time. Highest and best use of my time is to be with clients, right? To get the business, secure the business, negotiate. And that's made the biggest difference. I would say that at our brokerage, I was really coached by our management. My manager, Jason Noriega, is here on when I should get more help. I think as realtors, we can be a little bit of control freaks, and it's hard to delegate. Right? It's hard to delegate and know how or when to give things up. But when you have the right people, now it feels too easy that I don't double check things anymore because I actually really trust my team. I was coached that if you're doing at least 17 deals a year, it's probably time to get an assistant, like a full-time assistant. But you can also share an assistant, right? You could split an assistant with someone else. But figuring out what you should be doing with your time, I think, is the first step.
Excellent point on the the control issues, because one of the hardest things I think is for us to hire somebody to do things like marketing, make a flyer, MLS, and and you get somebody and you're like, wow, they're so much better than me, but it gets hard to get there. Go ahead, Lori.
So I've never formally had a coach, but I have stepped into a lot of the different coaching philosophies. I currently have adopted the Ninja system and been pretty much dedicated to that for the last, I want to say 5 years since I got introduced to Ninja. It just was a really good program that resonates with how I do business. And then I happened to join a company that's very Ninja forward with Christie's. I too have I've had an assistant, a full-time assistant, but I now have what I call a TC plus. She's my only transaction coordinator, but she also does some extra stuff for me that we've negotiated. So it does help me to have, and like you said, the trust, because I don't have to double check her. In fact, she checks me, and I'm like, that's what I kind of feel like that's what I pay her for, right? Because it's like, remind me of when I'm falling through the cracks, because I don't want to do the paperwork. If I wanted to do the paperwork, I would be the TC. I want to be out there meeting with the clients and kind of handling their needs. So,
And piggybacking something, you guys know what I mean, on the topic. So share with me your business model, meaning, are you business by referral? Are you advertising? Are you door knocking? Are you, doing some of the things? Because everyone has different ways of creating business. Open house, my roommate, when I had a office with a roommate, she was an open house queen, and she did all of her business by open house. And I suck at that. So, share with us what your business model is.
I'd say I've been very fortunate that the majority of my business is referral business. I had a 1 year where 100% of my business came from referrals. So I stepped into this business as an empty nester. So as opposed to having to go through it like Helen did, which scares the pants off of me, and I have mad respect for those of you who have to do it with children at home. My husband was just worried about me driving him crazy. So when we launched our 5th kid, he said, it's time for you to start your career that you've always wanted to do. So I thought I'd wait till she started college. And he said, I think you should do it her senior year of high school, because I'm a little worried about what's going to happen to you. So I owe him that, because he kind of pushed me in that direction probably a year earlier than I had wanted to. I wanted to have everything perfectly set up, right? We always want everything to be perfect before we start our businesses. But I do think that handling 5 kids, their schedules, and all of the things that happened, over the course of those years put me in a position to be a really good project manager for real estate. And then, I came into it at almost 50. So, I had a lot of people that knew, like, and trusted me. So, I was a little worried about telling them that I was starting something new, because I kind of was the queen of DS. If you guys know what DS is, I sold everything. And so that was when my husband said, like, if you could sell makeup and you can sell skincare and you can sell purses, why don't you sell houses? Because you always said you wanted to. So I was a little nervous about reaching out to my sphere and letting them know that I had my real estate license, because I didn't know if they'd take me seriously. But they did, because they knew that everything that I had done prior to that, I believed in the product, and they knew my service. So that's kind of my background. I'm strictly residential. And what was the other question?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll share a quick story about Lori. I was doing an open house at my listing, and some people came in, and by the fluke, I happened to know, because we'd been on tour together, who they were. And they came just to see Lori. And since we're both at Christie's, they saw the Christie's sign and just assumed every Christie's in South County was Lori. So, and Lisa sounds like Lori. We're both 4 letters. So the wife was like, I told you she wouldn't be here. But they came just to see her at an open house that wasn't even hers. So that's a good testament. Okay, business model.
Business model. Like how my team is set up.
And how do you get
how I
your
get business.
clients?
Okay, so my business, when I first started in the business, I did 12 deals in my first 12 months, and
Wow.
most of that was open house.
Wow.
And a couple were from, I was in tech before I got into real estate. And so a couple of those people were people that I'd worked with in tech who just trusted me because I also felt worried about making that career shift and having the trust. But most of it was open house. I would say now most of it is referral. I think I've gotten much worse at open house than I used to be. And I feel weird about trying to pick up clients for my own listings. I feel like it's a conflict. So I always feel better if I'm at someone else's open house. But in terms of how my team is structured, I don't know if I'm supposed to
Oh,
answer
that's
that.
fine.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
I have kind of like 2 assistants that we do a lot of big projects for listing prep, like sometimes $90,000, $120,000 projects. So they manage a lot of the listing prep and the marketing, and you know, some other like administrative stuff. And then I have an agent who's full-time, and I also have a TC plus. I think a TC plus is actually huge. Our TC, she's a licensed agent, but she also manages the entire disclosure process with sellers. And that has like been a godsend. So yeah, just figuring out where you want to spend less time and where someone else might be better, I think is big.
All right. So I started my business actually down in LA. And at the time, before kids. And then I had my first kid. And then my husband said like he got a job up here in Silicon Valley. So I was like, okay, I'll have to start my network all over again. So by the time we moved up here, I was pregnant with my second kid. And I'm just like, how am I going to do it in a brand new area with no family around? I'm going to have 2 kids and just like have to restart all over again. So what I did was like, I just created all these online profile everywhere. It's like, if I cannot go out to see people, I let people see me on the internet. So well, again, this is back in 2011, around there. So I created all these internet profile, signed up for everything that I could think of. And then I joined a lot of different networking events, including the ones that being held at SCORE. I was here almost every day back then. And I just met so many people. So I did a lot of, well, take it back. It wasn't every day, but then it was every week. But I met so many people and I got a lot of referral business. So over the years, I would say I'm pretty consistent in terms of referral business, about 83% to 90 something percent is all referral business. Never done door knocking because I never had time. Didn't do cold calling because my kids would be yelling and screaming in the background. So yeah, it was kind of like just online. And also, again, the same thing, building a team. I realized that I could not do it on my own. And I recruited one of my best friends who her husband also moved here. And so we're like, hey, you want to do it together? You go to see open houses. I'll do everything on the back end. And she was like, yeah, I love open houses. So I switched her from trying to be a piano teacher to become a realtor.
Wow.
And now she's like a top producer. But yeah, that really helped. And I was like, again, that's the start of me. Like, I'm just splitting everything with everyone in order for me to stay sane, to stay productive. And also I'm making everybody happy.
So Helen's a good friend to have. Okay, Helen, we'll start with you, although you pretty much answered this, and then we can go down. What do you think was your biggest challenge when you first started? Maybe other than having small children, relocating, but what was the big challenge when you started in business? Like, what was the breakthrough?
You know, I get this so much that when I first started, everyone was like, oh, did you just get out of college? It was like, oh, you look so young. Like, how long have you been doing this? And it's like, oh, I just need that respect. And then especially going into commercial real estate, I was investing in multifamily already. So I was helping clients to do some commercial real estate transactions. First thing I get the responses like, how did you even get this listing? Or like, who are you? Who are you? Where are you from? You know, so that was one of the reasons why I started studying for CCIM, trying really hard. It's like, I need to prove to people that I know how to do commercial real estate. Yes, I'm a residential agent, but I also know how to do commercial real estate transactions, but I just have to prove to people by getting the destination. So if you really want to see my, all the acronyms behind my name is actually really long because I took every courses I could think of, all the destination, GRI, ABR, blah, 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 is really long. But then this is the one thing, CSIM is the one that I really keep because when I show this to people, they know for a fact that I know how to do commercial real estate transactions.
Yeah, and it's a tough one. So you're like, wow. Roxy?
I think the hardest thing for me in the beginning was you can work so hard and work hard every day, long hours, and do open house, and to know, am I doing the right things? Right? Am I doing the right things to build my business, to get business? I think it takes a long time to build your pipeline, right? Like you could work with people for years. You could have a seller lead that takes 3 years, or a buyer lead that you're taking around for 2 years, right? And not know, am I doing the right things? But I think what's most important is actually to know when you have a truly motivated client. So that firing clients, I fired my first client in my first 8 months, and they were a $2 million cash buyer.
Oh my gosh.
And they were very active. We were making offers, and we didn't have a written agreement, but we were supposed to be exclusive. And then they started threatening, oh, this other young realtor's working hard for us in this area that they said they weren't even interested in, that they didn't want me to show them property in. And I felt like they were kind of threatening me in a way of, I don't know, I just didn't like how it felt. And in this business, I think when you are working hard and sometimes nothing's coming together, things are falling apart, it feels bad, and you feel bad about yourself. And you feel like, this is who I am. If I'm working this much, I'm a realtor, and it's not even going well. So I fired those clients. The next day was Easter. They didn't listen. They called, oh, can you show me a house? And I said, no, I don't want to work with you anymore. We talked about this yesterday. And that week I got, I think, 3 or 4 things in contract. And I realized was, I was spending all my time with the people who didn't appreciate me. They were like the people who were taking the most of my time. And I had all these other people who were super appreciative and kind, and they deserved more of my time. So understand if you have a good client and a motivated client, because it will help you be more successful, and you'll feel better about yourself, and you'll perform better also when you care more about the people.
Firing people is not easy, especially when you're like, don't have a bench of business and you're like, I'm not firing them, but she's right. You fire them and find the next people will come and you'll be way better off.
So now I know where those Easter clients came from. They came to me. No, I'm just kidding. I had a very similar story, but I refused to show them property on Easter Sunday, and they threatened me as well. So I wonder if it was the same people. I think my biggest challenge when I came into real estate, and what I had seen prior to getting my license and actually working in an office, was that I assumed it was always going to be like the networking meetings that I had been attending prior to getting my license and coming to SCORE and going to classes. So I was not, and also my past careers were very much oriented with working with people and project managing. So I was always with people and always with kids. I was never alone. So you would have thought that I would have enjoyed being alone, but I did not enjoy the aspect of real estate being the solo sport. So I quickly found a team to join, and that was very instrumental in my success, because I became part of a great team and I had great mentors. And to this day, I'm very, very good friends with them, even though I'm not on the team anymore. And you don't hear that very often, where teams dissolve and everybody stays friends, but we really did. And we were just there for each other at the right time. So I think just the aspect of the solo sport was really difficult for me. And I had to figure out, how do I know that this is the career that I want, and I know these are the things that I want to do, but how do I, you can go to an office and still be alone. And I felt very alone at the office. So it's like, I might as well just stay at home and work in my cute little home office that I created for myself. Cause don't we all do that? Right? Painted it and made the desk all pretty, because I'm a realtor. But the phone's not ringing your way. So I think Helen said it. I came to SCORE all the time for all the meetings. I would sign up for everything. Thank goodness for the web, right? For internet, because, I could take MLS classes and zip form classes. So I tried to learn as much as I could, even though most of the language went over my head, until it started clicking. So if you're suffering from solo sportness, just get involved with other people, even if you don't form a team,
Yeah, and I think now after we went through COVID and the offices, people just don't want to work in offices, it's worse. So you have to do things outside of the office sometimes to feel that synergy, right?
Find that culture, yeah.
Okay, Lori, let's talk about the industry. What's the most significant changes that you've seen in our industry during your tenure?
Most significant, I'm not, I'd have to think about that one, but I'd say that just the constant changing of the RPA and even now the listing agreement. And they've all been really positive. So I guess that is significant, but I came on board, like I said, just 11 years ago. And so I talked to people who have been in the industry for many more years than I have been. I still feel like kind of a newbie and a baby in this business. And I remember even buying my first house, and it was in the triplicate form with the carbon copy between it, where you're pressing really hard and, your broker gets the pink copy and the client gets the yellow copy and the white one goes to, I don't know where it went, the
yeah.
MLS, I don't know. And before there was even internet. So I feel very fortunate that I have the technology, that I came into the industry when the technology was available and that I was still young enough to adopt the technology. Thank God I still had kids at home that, they were in high school and going to college, that, I learned how to use all that technology and at my job. So that all helped.
I have a return.
We're like, I don't see her mouth moving and there's talking.
I think in our industry, there are always changes, right? Like now we have the new changes to have the required like buyer representation agreements. And we had, last year we were all nervous because of changes to commission. And, there's so many online services and brokerages that'll do everything for a fraction of the price or discount agents. So I think that there's always change. And I think the more we can get used to that or go adapt to that, that's okay. I think the biggest thing, I don't know what I think the biggest thing is, but I would say that even with the market, it felt different 3 weeks ago than it feels right now. And it felt different 2 months before that. So just being adaptable for whatever change comes and knowing your value, and that I don't feel that we're replaceable. I actually don't feel at all that a app or a computer or someone who does something for a flat fee could ever replace what I do. So understanding your own value and being able to articulate that is probably the best thing you can do for yourself, no matter what the changes are in the industry.
Changes 20 years ago, my gosh, a lot. And two things I can think of is one, I think back then, everyone compared us with used car salespeople. And everyone thought that like, you just got to be an extrovert. You have to know how to sell, then you can sell real estate. That was like the biggest criteria back then. Now I see quality agents. Oh, you have no idea. Like 20 years ago, I had to fight with agents so much, like just argue with them because of really dumb stuff. But now, like I see agents, they really go out there to take classes. They really educate themselves so much more. You talk to them as if like, wow, this is a real career, real profession. And we are in that trend or trajectory that we are starting to get more respect from our clients. And you mentioned something about the discount agent. Back then, it would be like all about discount, right? Like, hey, give me a rebate and all that stuff. But now we have clients like, I'll pay you 3% because I really value you, because you sound smart. You're telling me things that I cannot research on the internet. That's what I see. The biggest changes is that was like back then it's all about sales. Now it's all about who is really actually educated and true professional. And another one that I really noticed is like back then, everyone talks about like you have to be like, it's either residential or commercial. And if you're commercial, you have to be like either industrial or office or retail or what, blah, blah, blah. Now it's kind of like, I mean, maybe I'm being biased because I do both. I'm residential, but I'm being educated to be a commercial real estate agent as well. And one of the reasons why I started my own company back then was because I couldn't find a brokerage that would take me, that because I was like, I want to do both residential and commercial. No one would take me. So I was like, okay, fine then. Now I'll create my own company. So that was the reason why I created Halen.
So it's interesting because I'm also 20 years, but I was the beginning of 2005. And the industry has changed so much as far as the makeup of men to women, and especially in leadership roles. So when I was on the board the first time at SCORE, which is like, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. There were many times I was the only woman sitting at the table. So that's a huge difference. And women were not respected the same way they are now. I mean, it is one of the industries that we get paid the same typically, depending on your gender, it doesn't matter. So
Sorry, that
Okay.
is such a good point, and I always kind of emphasize that, especially CSIM, Judah and Alina, they're both part of the CSIM community in the commercial real estate world. When I first joined them, same thing, in the meeting, 60 people, there were only 2 women. And now you go there and by the way, we don't have a DI committee or anything like that. But I always believe that if we are willing to sit there with the other, whoever don't resonate with you, like they're not women, they're not minority, they're not whatever, just sit there until they notice us and really pay attention to us. And slowly, all of a sudden now we see like 60% women in our meetings. And Alina goes to classes for these exam classes. Used to be 1 or 2 women. Now, like 80-90% women. It's incredible. Like seeing that change just makes me so happy.
yeah, and when I first started the commercial team at Coldwell Banker, like, hey, can you join with us? And I said, okay. And every meeting, I was the only person. And I was definitely a junior, right? I wasn't one of them. So it's very interesting. So how do you keep up with the industry trends and news? And like how do you do it? Because we're all busy. It's hard to read. It's hard to watch stuff. So how do you do it?
Um, I do, like every morning, I just listen to news, I listen to anything that related to real estate. And then I try to network with a lot of different agents, even though we are a small firm, but then we network with other agents. And I do mastermind. We do like small mastermind group or big mastermind group, and we just talk about it. And we still under a big umbrella, a brokerage umbrella that's more cloud brokerage. But so we get news from there. But I sign up for Inman News as well. Networking is the best place where I actually talk to people all the time about what's going on in the industry.
I'm not going to have a good answer for this. I don't. And what I mean by that is I think there's a lot of noise. I think there's a lot of noise and a lot of fear and a lot of unnecessary, I don't know, information or assumptions out there for most things. So I try to keep it really simple and high level. What's changing legally? What do I need to know? And how can I now translate that information to my clients? Our brokerage does an amazing job with classes and keeping us updated about those things. But I do agree that just to keep up with what people might be doing or what's important, that's a lot from my network. But I try not to bog myself down with a lot of noise.
Same as Roxy. When I married my husband or when I was dating him, I told him I don't watch the news and I don't want you to, but if you do, that's fine. Just don't do it around me. I don't like to start my day with the negative talk, and I certainly don't want to end my day that way. So our family rule is he does watch the news because he loves it. He watches the one with the 6 different screens going on. And then over dinner, he gives me the highlights. I'm like, what do I need to know? He's like, well, there was a earthquake somewhere. Like, I want to know that kind of stuff because that I think, I need to know news of the world, but I'm not going to take the time to listen to it. And I get my political feeds from Instagram. So no, just kidding. I just want to make you guys laugh. If something's super important to me, I will look into what it is, and especially if it affects our clients. So, going to things like Ledge Day, coming here to score, our office does a great job. So I really think it's just kind of checking into the things that are important to you and that are important to your clients and staying abreast of that. There's enough information there just for those things that you don't need all the other noise. That was a perfect answer.
Yeah, and I know that
Perfect word.
social media can be really a time sucker. I get that. So what's your coming back this way? What's your feelings and how do you incorporate or don't incorporate social media in your business?
So I've been told that I don't do it enough by a really good client who's become a friend who we've never met in person. She received one of my mailers. I interviewed with her over the phone. She gave me the job and I've sold 3 homes for her now. She lives out of state. But she said, honestly, Lori, she goes, you need to do stuff on Instagram. Our agent here in Idaho does blah, 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 and you should go follow her. And I respected her opinion. I kind of feel like I don't need a lot more business. I'm very happy with the amount of business that I do. I'm not, I'm not very good at Instagram. So what you see on Facebook and Instagram is just me kind of just like, oh, that worked. So I don't take the classes. I'd like to be better. I don't have anybody, at home anymore to show me that. And my grandkids are too young to know it yet, but they will probably show me in a few years. So, but I do post a little bit. Obviously, our brokerage posts for us, and then I kind of forward stuff and I tinker in it. But other than that, I treat social media as TV time. So like
Yeah.
at night, it's
Mhm.
kind of just something what do they call that? Doom scroll. So I don't go there for any other reason. So if I'm on it, it's, because it's too late to be like working and I don't have a brain. So.
I've never been super into social media. I hired someone to help with that pretty early on because I knew it was important, but I can improve more with like direct video, giving expertise versus just listing videos or pretty things in houses. So I'd like to be better, but every time I'm on Instagram, I buy things, so I can't spend too much time on there. Sometimes I delete it for a while and I have no idea what's being posted, but I hear it's good. So yeah, but I do think it's an important part of our business, and I think it's extremely important for our listings. So we invest a lot of time into posting about our listings, and especially if they stay on the market, doing different videos, and we pay. And that's the commitment we make to all our sellers, is we pay to do online advertising and boosting across social channels as well.
I used to do a lot more social media when the kids were younger. It's more fun to take pictures of them. Then once they become teenagers, they're all like, you don't have my consent to take my pictures." And yeah, so like I kind of really don't do as much social media anymore personally, unless I'm a lot of times I love social media as a way to express my feelings. I like to write up, and sorry, I'm not an Instagram person. I feel like photos is not enough. I like to write about it. So Facebook is like more of my thing. I like to explain every picture. This is why I'm posting this picture, and then I write this whole story. So that's my way of letting people see who I am. And then of course, sometimes like I share some of my company, our company, we have a marketing assistant who posts all of our listings and what we've been doing, and testimonials. And I love doing listing videos. So my sphere, they do know that I do real estate, but I don't typically post a lot of stuff about real estate. I did at one point did a lot of monthly housing market update, and I would interview professional experts in, let's say, rental housing. And then I would have a half an hour talking about housing market updates with all the stats, and then another half hour interviewing this person. And I did it every single month for about 3 years. And it was a really great way for me. I used to get a lot of leads from there because our clientele in this area, they're all very much love to learn and education. They like thirsty for it. So it was really good. It's just so time consuming. And then I'm like, okay, I cannot do it anymore. But I would love to start back up again.
One of the reasons I asked is because it's so hard to keep up with trends and what's happening in our industry, especially if I'm like Lori, I don't do news. And I also am really bad at social media. I did hire someone to do it for me. But we're lucky in our office, one of the agents brings stats. And every time I get them, I'm like, oh, this is great. I could use it. They're not that hard to put together, especially with Aculist and things, but it's taking the time, right? And so I see a general trend here. Of course, we all want to know all things and be all that, but it's impossible. So yeah. So shifting into leadership, all of you are in some sort of leadership, whether it be for your team or why don't you share if you've had any other leadership experience, either with groups or maybe your favorite. Sometimes it's your kids' PTA school or whatever, because that shapes you as well.
Yes. So I mentioned that when I first moved here, first thing I joined was the education committee at SCORE. And then from there, I think I did commercial real estate task force, and we built this website, if Neil remembers. And then
He says yes.
He's focused. And then I was on the board for 3 years, and I was also on CCIM board, and I became their president for 2 years. And then now I'm on the National Institute for CCIM, and I'm as an incoming presidential liaison, and also chaired a bunch of committees so I've been on a lot of different leadership roles. And then on top of that, of course, I'm leading my team. Yes.
Cool. Excellent.
So I do lead my team, and that's my favorite because I love them so much. But I would say formally, I'm trying to do more. I'm joining a board for a local chamber in a town in the town that my office is in. So I'm starting that now, and I just in general try to make myself available. I've mentored a few agents, and I always try to make myself available if people need help or have questions and take the time. I just think that if people are going out of their way to be proactive about getting help, then, so many people gave that to me when I started. And so I always try to make the time to do that for them as well. I try to be involved also in our new agent training as much as I can, or they ask me. But yeah, just always trying to give back. I think that's what we can do for each other to raise the bar for our industry and other agents.
Nice.
I also mentor a few gals in our office. And then in the past, this is my first year that I've not been in a leadership role officially. So we have a smaller branch of Santa Clara County Association in South County called South County Realtors Alliance. And I served on that board for 8 years. So my last year was as what do they call it? Past president. So you serve your last year as past president, basically sitting on the board to kind of help them as they're regrouping their new year. And this year I made a significant decision to step away from boards for a while because I have grandchildren and I'm now Mimi a couple days a week. So in order to have the life and work balance, something had to give. And my husband said, you need to learn to say the word no. And so that was my work, was to learn how to say no. I do have FOMO, and I would love to be on more boards and do more leadership. And I will in the future. But right now, my season is helping my children with their littles. And that will only be a few years. And then they'll be off into school and I'll be back.
So that's an interesting concept, is that we have different areas of our life. And I'm a Buffini person. We have 5 circles, right? Doesn't matter if you're Buffini or not. Most of us are trying to balance our work life, but it's not just work and personal life. It's also finances, physical, spiritual or mental health. And what happens, I've noticed, is it's impossible to be balanced in all 5. So when you're focusing on one, something else is suffering. So going back this way, Lori, what would you think is your strongest area, and what is the one that you need the most work in at this point?
They need work in all areas because there's no such thing as perfection. And even though we use the word balance, I wouldn't necessarily say, as Lisa mentioned, you're not going to be balanced in every single part of the circle and where they intersect. But making that conscious decision as I was exiting the board and really working very hard to not get wooed to come onto the scoreboard, which is where I really want to be. And
You hear that, Neil?
and the reason I had even stepped into the roles at South County when Lisa tapped me and, was kind of bringing me along as I was new to South County. And I knew that that was a way to get to know people. So I definitely had this on my radar, but 10 years ago, I didn't know that I was going to be a grandma, right? I knew that it was coming, but I didn't know what it was going to feel like. And boy, it's just the most amazing feeling ever. And to just, have those babies and be there for my kids, that's really important because childcare is so expensive. And then just to be able to be part of my grandchildren's life, and it means a lot to my kids. So I guess where I need the most help, that's such a hard question, Lisa. I probably don't spend enough time on me because I'm, in this career, I think we give to everybody and we put ourselves last. So I'm trying to work on that a little bit more.
I think in general, boundaries are really important.
Mm.
And I think of us as being on call. I know I work nights, I work weekends. I know that even if I try to take a day off, if someone needs something, I'm not going to take a day off. So I don't think it's extremely rare that I have any day that I am home that I'm not working. And it always ends up being more than I expect. When I first started, I missed a lot of things. I missed a lot of birthdays and baby showers and things that I now regret. But it was coming from a fear place. It was coming from a security fear place, right? I didn't know when I would ever get paid. I had a mortgage. And so I felt like I had to make those choices. And that was what was modeled for me from my mom. She's a workaholic. She owns a business. She's incredible. But it was always like working is the highest value. No one can ever fault you for working hard. And so I've had to do a lot of work on my own mental understanding of like what my life should look like and what I want and how to have what I want. And so I think that's really about creating boundaries. So I wouldn't say that I have one area that's better than others. I think sometimes it gets better and sometimes it gets worse. But my ultimate goal is to feel balanced and at peace with the things that I'm doing. And I'm doing a much better job. I took yesterday some part of my afternoon to see one of my best friend's kids do a dance recital.
Aw.
And I didn't used to do things like that.
Mhm.
But it feels better to know that those moments, like I won't regret that I missed them.
Yes.
So yes, the life is all about balance, and then it depends on what stage you're in. And it doesn't matter, you know, like somebody you're like you don't have kids yet, but then like you have a lot of your families that you want to spend birthdays with, and then like you have grandchildren, and so you want to spend more time with the grandchildren. And then for me, I'm at a stage now, my kids are older, teenagers, 11, 13, and 14, and then my parents are also older, and but then my parents are not here, so it's like now you're in this, they call it sandwich generation. I think a lot of you are like nodding because you feel it. So how do you balance like work, your kids, your parents, and then social life, and what social media and the news of like being educated and all that stuff? It is hard, but I feel like the most important thing for all of us to know is that it is okay to not be good at certain things. And then your kids, sometimes you feel like, oh my God, I'm not here while I'm working. I miss my kids something, like some activities. But they are actually looking at you while they're growing up, seeing that my mom, my dad has a really good work ethic. And I can assure you they will forgive you, right? But then they also know that you set boundary, just like what you're saying. You set boundary for them, say like, I have time that I set aside for you. One of the main reasons why I create a team, I don't ever do a deal by myself, rarely, is because I want to make sure that some of the weekends I have available to do their flag football, baseball, basketball, dance, and so many different activities. And then I want to be able to like go visit my parents because they are now old. I need to go take care of them. I need to take them to hospitals. I want to make sure that I never regret it, not spending time with them, saying like, I did not talk to them. So I think it's like, it's okay. You're not perfect. None of us is perfect, but as long as they know that you're trying, I think our family, they understand. And one thing I want to improve on the most, probably my friend circle. I don't go out anymore. If you have events in the evening after 4, don't call me. I won't be there. So, so I don't really have a big social network besides work and my kids and all my parents, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's not atypical. I know my mom was a realtor when I was growing up, and when I was like, there is no way I will ever do that, because she was gone all the time. And that was a choice, and that was fear-based as well. So I'm really impressed and refreshed by you three, because you all are working so that, yes, you're working, you're making good money, or you're able to give back, but you're not leaving everything else behind. Because there are realtors that do that, and we do need to balance, even if that's kind of hard to achieve, but we're trying, right? Multitasking. So what qualities do you think are important in a woman? Could be men too, but we're on a women's panel, to be in leadership. Like, what do you think is the most important qualities?
I think you can't pigeonhole yourself as thinking that you're a woman. You're just a professional. You're in a leadership role. You're doing what the job asks you to do. Don't think about it. Like I honestly don't really think that I think about like, oh, I'm a woman in here, like I forget. It's like, or they say like, oh, you're first Asian president for the, I was like, oh, really? I didn't even think about it. It's like I'm just one of you guys. Like, don't give me any credit for me being who I am in terms of like how I look, but give me credit for you believe in my work. Like, I want you to respect me because of you trust that I have that expertise. You trust that I can lead. That's what I want.
I think the most important things to have in leadership, yeah, just in general, I think empathy. I'm going to call it Jason again because he's right here, but he has an incredible amount of empathy towards people. I could never be a manager. It just seems so challenging. And the other thing is just an unwavering moral and ethical compass. I think that there's too much gray area in our business. It's really easy to slide in our business, right? And sometimes if you need a paycheck and whatnot, like there are things that you might want to do to convince someone to buy a house or double end something or whatever it is. But I think those two things, a strong moral compass and empathy, can be the best things to give to someone. And also just that foresight of like helping people see that this is the long game and not the short game.
Love it.
So I agree with what both of you ladies say. And I was going to say empathy, but since you already said it, I would say like emotional intelligence. I do believe that we should be judged for what we bring to the table, not necessarily because we're a woman, but I do think that some of I'm not going to use the word competitive edge, but like maybe the quality that I bring to a conversation sometimes will be the life experience and the empathy, which I think comes more natural to women than men. That's not a slam against men. I just think that women happen to have a little more empathy. Maybe they've gone through things, having children, not having children, that's not necessarily always a decision a man has to make. And, women just go through a lot in their lives, and they're there for their moms, they're there for their sisters, and they may have raised their siblings. So there's just so many tangents, but I think just having that emotional intelligence balanced with your moral compass, because somebody brought it up earlier on the panel, just the level of the quality of the agents out there today is so nice, because even when I started in the industry, I felt like I knew more than some of the agents that I was working on the other side of the transaction from. And I would go to my mentor and I would ask, did I make the right decision? Did I say this right? And they were like, oh, you were absolutely right. And I thought, well, that's so strange because they had been in the business so much longer than me. So you can't really, gauge it on how long somebody's been in the business. But I agree with the three of you.
I
the
think
three of
it's
us.
tough too, the longer we're in the business, because it's very easy to slide into not going to education, not taking classes, not getting involved because you're like, my business is coming. And in this day and age, you have to do that. So good point. So I'm going to ask you all, what is your highest accomplishment thing you're most proud of? But think like I was thinking about it. It's a tough question because it'd be like not necessarily an award unless that is, but like me and Helen went through REOs and short sales. And after you go through, and I was a single mom with a kid in private college, and you don't know how you're going to eat. So you're like, I got to figure this out. And you do. And then after we went through that, it's like, I don't care what market comes, I can get through it. So that was a huge accomplishment. There's a lot of other ones. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an actual award, or got my bachelor's or whatever it is. But if you can think of anything that was a huge accomplishment that you're proud of, share with us, please.
So I've been in the business only 11 years. So I've been in a very healthy business, right? I've not had to go through the REOs or short sales. We did survive COVID. So there was that, there was that short time for, a few months that we didn't know what was going to happen. And then it turned out to be the best, thing for our businesses. So surviving, that's not necessarily like heroic. Although we were so busy, it was kind of heroic.
Yes.
What I would say has nothing really to do with real estate. My proudest accomplishment, I know it's going to sound silly, it is my children, but it's the return on the investment. So my children are all parents now. Mother's Day is great because I get these beautiful cards that just make me weep. And it's like my kids finally understand the challenges, the sacrifices, and that's why their cards, the way they write in their cards to me for my birthday and for Mother's Day of the last year or two since they became parents is so meaningful because I did raise 5 children, but 2 of them are not mine biologically. I lost my first husband right after I had my 3rd child. She was 6 weeks old. And I was a single mom at the age of 30 with 3, I had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-week-old. And not that there's anything wrong with public assistance. I'm just going to say I put my nose to the grindstone, and thank God I had a village to help me raise my children, which was my mother, my mother-in-law, and my sister. And we made it work because childcare wasn't going to be an option. And I had to go to work and figure it out. And my dream had been to be the best mom and be barefoot and pregnant and, be the PTA person. I was going to be all that, maybe even homeschool, who knows, but it didn't happen. So I am very proud of the person that I raised, and it's reflected back now with my children, reminding me now because they didn't always remind me. Sometimes, they say things that can be hurtful and you're like, wow, you just don't get it, but now they get it. So I'm going to say that's my proudest accomplishment.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
That's going to be hard to follow.
Mhm.
I'm really proud. I'm really proud of my team. Like I said, I've gone through a few people and a few iterations of it, and last year put the team together. And I do think it can be a really lonely career and it can be hard. And we have fun every single day. We have fun. Everyone works so hard, and their commitment to excellence and quality is just incredible. And I know that choosing the right people and doing what we need to do to keep them together. I don't know how long we'll all be together. People will move on, but at this moment, I'm just so extremely happy.
I love that. It's like they're building a team is very fulfilling, especially like you have good people around you. That's definitely one of my proudest things. It's like the team being able to help out when we need it. There are a couple, there's so many things I feel like so want to share, but okay, I'm going to narrow it to 2 things. One is that, again, I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's like breaking that stereotypical commercial real estate world where, I had a studies like they said that it was 67% Caucasian middle-aged men in the commercial real estate industry back then. And now it's like more than 50% women. So I feel like I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to move up to that CCIM leadership to the National Institute level, where now I get to make decisions on like where this commercial real estate industry direction can go, right? So that's one thing I'm really, really proud of. Second thing I'm really, really proud of was that last year we actually broke our own record, actually broke into Hollywood industry, not Hollywood industry. I'm not making movies, Hollywood, and did a few major deals like involving $63 million home, $23.7 million home. And then I was working alongside these celebrities that I didn't even know they were celebrities because I don't watch TV until somebody told me, it's like, you don't know who he is. He's on like $1 million listing. I'm like, huh? Anyhow, and then we were able to get their respect. And then they even came back and want to work with us. They still, call me and text me and say, hey, do you want to do more deals? I never thought I would be, like working among them. It's like, these are the people that's like on TVs and they were selling these mega mansions. And I was like, there was so much to learn, but you know why they respect us? Because they saw how hard we work. Me and my partner, Susanna, we went down to LA. They didn't even know that we live up here. They thought we live in LA, and they saw the work, the amount of work that we have put together to put the deal together. They actually came back and said they want to work with us again. So that's something I'm really proud of, that we were able to break into those 2 society that I didn't think that we could be a part of.
Super cool. And it's really interesting because sometimes we think of, you think of yourself as a regular person, right? You're like, I'm just a regular person. How am I going to sell a mansion in LA or raise 5 kids or create a team that's knocking it out of the park? How am I going to do that? You do it, and then you still don't think you're anything extraordinary, but you are. And it's hard work is a lot of it. So yeah, and dedication. So what advice, this is kind of our wrap up, what advice would you give to our guests and people on Zoom and to the world as to being being successful, happy? I mean, what would your advice be?
I always say like, you don't have to be number one. I don't care to be like the number one agent in Santa Clara County or in the country. I just want happy clients. I just want happy teams. I just want my family to feel like I work hard, but I also not neglecting them. So I just want to have a happy life. I think happiness is the most important thing, and that's the definition of success. It's not about how much money you make.
Excellent.
Ooh, I don't know. I think the best advice I could give is simplify, do what you're good at, focus on what you're good at. Don't try to do everything. And understand who you are outside of real estate so that you can also have that balance that'll carry you through when things get tougher at work. Yeah, and keep your mental health strong. Really.
Yes.
I think the best advice I would be able to give somebody would say is don't compare, because like Helen said, your level of success is your level. It doesn't matter. Even if we had been in the business the exact same amount of time, we may be judged differently. You know, our names are on different signs, and those are nice accolades that come along the way. But that wasn't my goal. It used to be, I'm not going to lie. When I was in the beginning, it was my goal, but then I learned to have balance, and needed to be what made me happy and what makes my family happy. So having a happy family, a happy husband, because he's super supportive and I couldn't do this without him, is my level of success is just me. I'm just competing against me. What do I need to do better tomorrow? Where can I improve upon myself? Please don't look around the room and compare yourself to anybody else or anybody in your office, because you're unique and you are on a different trajectory than other people. So that would be my best piece of advice, because I see too many people beat themselves up, comparing themselves and wondering why their business doesn't look like somebody else's.
Yeah, and you don't know what's behind the door. So just because it looks good up front. Did anyone have a question? If you do, I'm going to bring the microphone because Zoom cannot hear if you just talk. Does anyone have a question for anyone on the panel? I mean, I know they did a great job, so you might not have any questions, but if you do, no? Oh, wow.